Hey, what's going on, guys? This Saturday is UFC 295, Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira for the vacant light heavyweight title, and I am so excited for this fight card. This is going to be the top 3 reasons I love UFC 295. I'm going to start with some honorable mentions, then I'm going to get into my actual list, going from 3 to 1, 1 being the reason I am most looking forward to UFC 295. Now, before I even get into my list, let me know down in the comments, what is your number 1 reason you are excited for UFC 295? And also, I'll link my entire UFC 295 playlist down in the description if you want to see my full card predictions or any of the other content I've done for UFC 295. Now, starting off with the first honorable mention, and that is that Derek Brunson is not fighting at UFC 295. The dead body of Derek Brunson. I did not want to see him fight Roman Dolidze. People might not remember this fight because this got canceled like a month ago, maybe even longer than that. But originally, the UFC announced they're going to do Derek Brunson versus Roman Dolidze at UFC 295. And Derek Brunson's a dead body. He's damn near 40 years old. He got destroyed in his last 2 fights, even though he was competitive early. In his last 2 fights, his corner literally had to throw the towel in both of those fights. He took a lot of damage. And for whatever reason behind the scenes, I don't know what happened, but they decided to part ways. So Derek Brunson now head over to PFL. Who knows how he'll do there? I don't trust his chin at all. But Roman Dolidze was going to smash his skull in badly and finish him badly. And I didn't want to see that again. You know, I'm tired of seeing Derek Brunson just get brutally KO'd over and over and over again. I mean, go back and watch that Dricus du Plessis finish. The ref was going to let him continue till the next round. Thank God his corner threw in the towel. The fight before that against Jared Cannonier, the corner threw in the towel, but the ref stopped it anyway. And they were just hellacious beatings. They were like beating someone like they owed you money, beating someone like maybe they asked somebody a question you don't like in an interview on the MMA Hour. It was something along those lines. You know, it was horrible to watch Derek Brunson get demolished. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe they give him an okay matchup in his next fight. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. His corner's throwing in the towel. No, let's give him Roman Dolidze. Made absolutely no sense. Roman Dolidze, good grappling, amazing jiu-jitsu, and nasty power as well. Not the most polished striker, but Derek Brunson, not a very good striker himself. So I think Roman Dolidze would have literally given Derek Brunson even more CTE than he already has. So I'm so happy that that fight got canceled. And that's, you know, an honorable mention for why I love UFC 295. Moving on to my next honorable mention and my last honorable mention, and that is that we are getting a banger matchup on the main card between Pat Sabatini and Diego Lopez. I love this fight. I know a lot of people are very high on Diego Lopez. He has excellent jiu-jitsu, excellent submission skills. He's super aggressive on the feet. But people don't realize, I think a lot of people are going to be picking Diego Lopez in this fight, and I'm picking Diego Lopez myself. But I don't think the majority of fans understand how good Pat Sabatini is on the ground as well. You look at Pat Sabatini's overall record, of 18 wins, he has 12 by submission. Pat Sabatini likes to go out there, grapple you, hold you down, beat you up, and look for a submission himself. So I love this stylistic matchup. I absolutely love this fight because you have Pat Sabatini, who's a really good wrestler, grappler, and submission artist, against Diego Lopez, who is just unbelievably violent off his back, looking for ground and pound shots off his back, looking for submissions off his back offensively, chaining them together. I mean, the Mobstar Evil fight where Diego Lopez came in on short notice was incredible. I feel like he's getting a little bit too much hype from that, but I still think this is perfect matchmaking by the UFC. Pat Sabatini versus Diego Lopez is incredible. I mean, you look at Diego Lopez, he has 22 wins. Of his 22 wins, 12 wins via submission and 8 wins via KO, TKO. So there's no doubt in my mind that this fight is going to be a banger because even if Pat Sabatini's winning, he's going to be on top. He's going to try to take Diego Lopez down, control him, and Diego Lopez is going to be throwing elbows from his back, scrambling for arm bars, scrambling for triangle chokes, looking to get sweeps and end up on top himself. So I think no matter what happens in this fight or who ends up winning, I think it's going to be a banger grappling matchup. And I love fights where you have really cool grappling exchanges and scrambles. You know, I don't want to see Kron Gracie drag his ass across the canvas. I want to see guys like Pat Sabatini and Diego Lopez who really use their jiu-jitsu offensively and look for a finish. I cannot wait for this matchup. This is perfect matchmaking by the UFC. Moving on to my number 3 reason I love UFC 295, and that is that Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall is a real heavyweight title fight. I know technically it's an interim heavyweight title fight because John Jones pulled out, but let's be honest. Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall is the real heavyweight title at this point. John Jones, by the time he returns, and by the way, he's only going to fight Stipe Miocic when he returns in 2024, but I'm not here to talk about that, okay? By the time he returns in 2024, he'll have fought for 2 minutes since 2020. So 2 minutes in 4 years. We're gonna say he's the champion? No. And he's only willing to fight old man Stipe, who's been answering phones at the fire department for the last 3 years himself, who got folded like a lawn chair in his last fight? No. Sergey Pavlovich has been going out there and knocking guys dead. I mean, this guy is an unbelievable first-round finisher. I mean, he's looking for KOs nonstop. You look at his record right now. He's on a 6-fight win streak. All 6 of those fights via first-round KO. That's incredible. That's crazy. And I understand, okay, you want to say, oh, well, heavyweight isn't the best division. I don't care. To go out there and do what he did to him in the first round. And Curtis Blaydes is a really good win. You look at Tom Aspinall, okay, he doesn't have the best resume, but he's super athletic, light on his feet, good striking, good grappling. Kind of like a new breed of heavyweight that everyone's kind of been talking about. He has 9 wins by KO, TKO, 4 wins by submission. So literally every single one of his fights has been finished. So I understand he's coming off a win against Marcin Tybura, outclassed him. The Curtis Blaydes loss, he suffered a knee injury. They wheeled him out in the world's smallest chair. Fight before that dominated Alexander Volkov. So I truly believe this is the heavyweight title fight. And this fight should have been on the card to begin with. You know, I believe it was Pavlovich and Aspinall were both advocating for this fight to be on the card. But the UFC said, no, we're going to have Pavlovich as a backup, even though we're not going to book him against Jones or Stipe if one of those guys fall out. So I absolutely love this co-main event. I believe it's for the real heavyweight title. And I believe whoever wins this fight, depending on what happens with the division, I think most likely the winner of this fight will be elevated to undisputed champion. But I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think there's no doubt that this fight will end in a finish. And I think it's the 2 best heavyweights right now going against each other. Even though, like Tom Aspinall, you can say, okay, he lost to Curtis Blaydes. He hasn't proved a whole lot considering the guys he's fought. I think it's the 2 best heavyweights right now outside of John Jones. But John Jones is only willing to fight Stipe. They're fighting for the heavyweight title. I don't care if the UFC is saying it's an interim title fight. But no matter what, stylistically, this is an outright banger of a matchup. And I cannot wait for this fight. Moving on to my number 2 reason I am looking forward to UFC 295. And this is similar to the last reason, but there wasn't a lot of super unique reasons to love this card. But it's Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis. If you do not know who these guys are, you need to start watching the sport more. Because Matt Frevola and Benoit Saint Denis, this has potential fight of the year. I mean, fight of the year. That's crazy to be saying that before a fight. This is a fight that, since it was announced, I kind of pinpointed on the schedule. And I think I even highlighted, I did a video of like under the radar fights, and this was one of them. Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis should be a crazy, crazy wild fight while it lasts. There may be a crazy finish early, but if this fight goes into the 2nd or 3rd round, I can't imagine how this fight's going to play out. Matt Frevola in his last few fights starts Drew Dober, starts Otman Azaitar, starts the guy before that. His last loss was kind of a fluky loss to Terrence McKinney. I think Matt Frevola starts as Terrence McKinney in a rematch. You look at Benoit Saint Denis, he's 12-1. His only losses against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos on short notice, up a weight class. You look at Benoit Saint Denis, 9 wins by submission, 3 wins by KO TKO. He beat Thiago Moises relatively easily in his last fight. The fight before that exposed Ismail Bonfim, went out there, wrecked him, and finished him, and everyone was high on Bonfim for what he did to Terrence McKinney. And I mean, Benoit Saint Denis, the amount of damage he can absorb, and he will still fire back. I'll never forget what he took against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. That fight should have been stopped. I think that's the fight where they threw the ref out for not stopping the fight. That's how crazy that fight was. Benoit Saint Denis improving. He's looking better than ever. Has nasty kicks, nasty hands, nasty power, nasty submission ability. And he's going against Matt Frevola, who has a little bit more technical striking, definitely better boxing, but also ready to throw down. I cannot wait for this lightweight matchup. I have to. People always say, oh, you complain about this and complain about that. I give my honest opinion on everything. It's not I'm trying to compliment or I'm trying to complain. Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis is grade A matchmaking by the UFC. And thank God, this belongs on the main card. You know, we complain, oh, this fight shouldn't be on the main card. This should be on the prelim. This fight deserves to be on the main card. I cannot wait for Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis. No matter what happens, there's no way this is a stinker. This is one of those matchups, again, you can just point to and say, that's going to be a great fight. It might end up being fight of the night. It may end up being fight of the year. It depends how their chins hold up, because I think no matter what, this fight is going to be absolutely amazing. Moving on to my number 1 reason I love UFC 295. And this is kind of pretty obvious, and I wonder if anyone knew what my number one reason was going to be, and that's the return of Jiri Prochazka. In the main event, we're getting Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira for the vacant light heavyweight title, and Jiri Prochazka is the champion that never lost his belt. He vacated his belt. He suffered a nasty shoulder injury. He's been out all the way since UFC 275, which was June of 2022. So he's been out basically a year and a half at this point, and he's one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. And it's crazy because he hasn't even had that many fights in the UFC. I always, it's kind of shocking. This is going to be his fourth fight in the UFC, but he's been knocking dudes dead. Look what he did to Volkan Ozdemir. If you didn't see his UFC debut, it was on Fight Island. Starched him on, I think it was the early prelims. Then he fought Dominic Reyes in a main event, spinning back elbow. Literally had Dominic Reyes fall like he was hit by a sniper. It was nasty. Then he fought Glover Teixeira for the title. This may have been the best fight I've ever seen. It was craziness. He gets a fifth round rear naked choke when he's losing on the scorecards in a crazy wild fight where it seemed like every 10 seconds, it seemed like somebody was going to get finished. This is an incredible fighter. He may be pound for pound the most exciting fighter in the UFC. It's crazy to me. Think about how exciting Charles Oliveira is. I think Jiri Prochazka is more exciting than Charles Oliveira. Jiri Prochazka just walks forward like a madman, throwing crazy combinations, looking for finishes, and he has no respect for his opponent striking. And what's crazy about this return fight, it's no tune-up matchup. He had a nasty shoulder injury. He had to have shoulder surgery. He sat out for a year and a half, and he's walking right back into a fight with Alex Pereira, who just beat Jan Blachowicz, albeit kind of controversial, and Alex Pereira moved up to light heavyweight. People are thinking that his power is going to translate. We haven't really seen that yet just because he's only had one fight there. But this is a crazy matchup for Jiri. I mean, on paper, it's almost like a nightmare matchup for Jiri because Jiri's so wild and reckless on the feet, and Alex Pereira is so technical and has the nasty power in his left hand and has nasty power in his kicks and knees as well, and also chops the legs brutally. So I am really excited to see Jiri Prochazka back in there. And honestly, I just hope Jiri Prochazka's longevity in the sport can just continue to go on for at least another couple years. Because when you take the amount of damage that Jiri Prochazka takes in fights, it's only a matter of time before they get their lights shut off. And I talk about this all the time. I'll harp on this right now. We have to appreciate these guys when they're in that special period in time. And Jiri Prochazka may be in that time. It already may be gone in an instant. We might not even realize the shoulder injury may have changed Jiri Prochazka forever. Think about the perception of Dominic Reyes after he arguably beat John Jones, and then think about the perception of Dominic Reyes now. Hasn't had a win since. Think about that perception. The same thing could have happened to Jiri. It could have happened to Jiri after, basically after winning the title against Glover Teixeira and now returning. He could get his lights shut off by Alex Pereira and never be the same again, never be in the title hunt again. So I'm so excited for his return. I hope we see a decent career longevity from Jiri Prochazka. I hope we see him take a little bit less damage in this fight regardless of what happens. But you could not get a better stylistic clash than the wild, crazy, reckless style of Jiri Prochazka versus the super technical kickboxer in Alex Pereira. And that's why my number one reason is the returning Jiri Prochazka, because people always ask me, what's your favorite fighter? What's your favorite fighter? I really am not emotionally attached to a lot of these guys, but what really makes me like a fighter is an excitement that they bring. Like, no matter what, you're like, okay, Jiri Prochazka's fighting. There is absolutely no way this is going to be a stinker. And Jiri Prochazka is one of my favorite fighters to watch. That's it. Because of his excitement level, he's one of my favorite fighters to watch. So I am so excited to see him return at UFC 295 against Alex Pereira. This is a hardcore fans' dream matchup between these two because it's just perfect. The crazy, wild Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. I cannot wait for the main event on Saturday night. When originally it was going to be John Jones versus Stipe Miocic as the main event, everyone was saying Jiri Prochazka, Alex Pereira is the people's main event, and I agree with that. So I'm not even that bummed out that this was elevated to main event after John Jones got injured and had to have surgery. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm really looking forward to the return of Jiri Prochazka. That is my number one reason I am looking forward to UFC 295. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.